Real Madrid may have won La Liga, but after you hear these attacker ratings, it's not going to look pretty. What's up, guys? Welcome back to El Merengue Culé. Today, we're going to be doing the attacker ratings. And if you haven't checked out the defender and the midfielder ratings, then I highly suggest you do, because this one is going to be a little rough. And I think it really highlights the importance of that defense in midfield and their ability to score goals for Real Madrid. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Our number one player on the list, and not quite number one for the ratings, is Brahim. So, it's really tough with him. I'm going to give him a 3 out of 10 rating, and it's being tough on him, right? Because he got very little opportunity. And yes, you can argue, well, he got little opportunities because he wasn't practicing well, because he wasn't playing well. And I don't know if that's fully true. At the beginning of the season, he started off very strong in the preseason, but then right away after like the first game, he got an injury. And he was injured for like 3-4 months. And then he came back and he was out of the rhythm. Everyone already had a lot of minutes on their feet, and so he just wasn't ready. He looked slow out there, and that just basically caused him not to have very many opportunities. So he was the only player in the Real Madrid squad to not be involved in a single goal scoring situation. So he had 0 goals, 0 assists in 6 games. He's a great young talent, and I would really like to see Real Madrid loan him out to another team to really watch him develop. Moving on, we have Mariano. So Mariano, I'm gonna have to give him a 3.5 rating. Now, this was kind of tough for me to choose Mariano over Brahim, because I think Brahim is definitely the better player in the grand scheme of things. But in terms of the season, Mariano, I mean, he at least got himself a goal. Yes, his only goal was probably the goal against our biggest rival. It was a goal against Barcelona. Yes, it didn't really mean much because we were already going to win that game. It was already 1-0. But it was just kind of like the nail in the coffin to our biggest rivals, Barcelona, which was kind of nice to see. Aside from that, he spent more time at home than sitting on the bench itself. So it's just kind of hard to even really give him a rating. Doesn't have much technical skill. He is a fast player. He is a strong player. But aside from that, I don't really approve too much on his, I guess, view of the game. I'm just going to leave it at that. Mariano, a 3.5 rating. I don't think we'll be seeing him again next year at Real Madrid, and if we do, definitely not on the field. Moving on, we have Luka Jovic. And it kind of leaves you wondering, what could have happened? What could have happened had he not been involved in all that drama, He had some national team drama where he got in trouble with them and he got fined. Quarantine started and he was caught outside of quarantine and he got fined once again. And lo and behold, when we come back, he comes back and can't even practice because some of his friends that he hung out with tested positive for COVID, and thus he had to go into a 2-week quarantine to make sure, and then he had to guarantee 3 negative testings for COVID. So overall, it was a season that just filled with trouble for him. He never found his rhythm, and on top of that, he had to deal with a Karim Benzema that was just on fire the majority of the season. So whenever he came on, he got like 5-10 minutes of playing time, and most of the times that's not enough time for a player to really get in the groove of things. So with that being said, I'm gonna have to give Luka Jovic a 4 out of 10 rating. I have a lot of hopes for him next year. This season, he bagged himself 2 goals and 1 assist. Hopefully next season he has a better year. Moving on, we're gonna go on to Gareth Bale. Now, this is another player that I've talked about before, and, I'm very grateful for what he did in the past, but Bale, the exit door is that way. Please pack your bags and leave. It's just kind of frustrating with him because he is not, you can just tell he doesn't even care about the team anymore. He doesn't put in any effort. Usually when seasons start, my hopes for him kind of go back up. Why? Because he has such good, physical attributes. I mean, this guy is strong as heck. He is super fast. However, he's had so many injuries, and whenever he would come back, his technique would kind of go down. You could tell he was a little bit scared. And after every injury, it was like you take away another good part of him. Now it doesn't even look like he's fast on the field anymore. It's just not good. And he's just bringing way more drama to the team than we even need. I think he's costing us so much money for him to just be sitting on the bench like that. But we can't even offload him because there's no teams that can afford his salary. So it's just we're stuck in a really bad situation with him. He had 2 goals and 2 assists in 16 games he played this year, which is honestly brutal for a player that was one of the best, like top 10 players in the world not too long ago, 3 years ago maybe. So it's just kind of sad to see him go on down that path, but it is what it is. Next up, we have Marco Asensio. Now, it's very tough to give this guy a rating because he only played 9 games this season. For you guys that don't know, he tore his ACL in the 2nd game of preseason last year, and he was basically supposed to miss the whole year, and had it not been for the quarantine, he wouldn't have played. But he came back due to that long break that we had, and he came back on fire, actually. Last season, he had 1 goal all year long. He played all year and he had 1 goal. And then this season he comes back, and the most memorable moment for him is his first game back, his first touch of the game, he sends it in. Yes, he was on the field like 20 seconds. I think it was like 23 seconds. So he ended up having a great comeback to the season. In those 9 games, he scored 3 goals and had 1 assist, which was a lot more like the Marco Asensio that we knew before. So it just kind of gets me wondering, had he had the whole season, would he have been able to keep up with that goal scoring ratio? I mean, if so, it would have helped Real Madrid tremendously. However, because he played such little games, I'm only going to be able to give him a 5.5 rating. I try to stay pretty neutral with him. The 0.5 because he did have a pretty good return of the season, but 5.5 rating it is for Marco Asensio. Moving on, we have Rodrigo. So Rodrigo, I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10 rating. Now, it's in the grand scheme of things, he had a really good season, right? He's 19 years old, first year in a European league, and he had a hat-trick in the Champions League. He overall scored 2 goals in the whole La Liga season. He played 19 games though. 19 games as a 19-year-old that on your first year, like that is a good season. However, with that being said, there were periods of time where he would kind of go quiet. I think there was like a span of like a month and a half where he didn't even get called up to a game. There were a few games where he would kind of go quiet. However, looking at the positive aspect of things, whenever he would come on the field, he was one of the few players that was not scared to take players on. He has very good pace, great technique with the ball, and a great shot. So Rodrigo, with that being said, I'm going to have to give him a 6 out of 10 rating. A little better than average. So I hope he improves on what he did this year, and next year I think he would have a pretty good season. Next up we have Eden Hazard. Now, of course, I wish he was a lot higher on the list, and he's still relatively high, but that's because of how bad of an attacking season we had. I mean, guys, Hazard did not have a good season. He probably had the worst season of his life, and yet he's still in the top 3 attackers for Real Madrid, in my opinion, which just goes on to highlight our attacking capabilities this year. But anyways, I think that the issues with him is that after we bought him from Chelsea, he came back at such a bad form. He came back overweight, or well, not overweight, but a couple more pounds than he should be at a good form, and so that really hindered him, and so that led to an injury at the beginning of the season, and then he was out for a couple months. Comes back, and it took him a while to get back in good form, but when he got in good form, he was the top Hazard that we had seen. And for most of you guys, you may have forgotten by now because he went back to, a bunch of injuries, but he had a span of about 2.5 months where he was phenomenal. He was taking players on, drawing fouls like crazy every game. He was starting to bag up a good amount of assists. Only scored 1 goal the whole year, yes, but that goal came in that span of his good span. However, he was just starting to look really good, and it wasn't until the PSG game where Munier, the right back, came and slashed him right at his ankle, and he was out for about 4 months. Comes back, and within 3 games, re-injures himself. Luckily, we had the pandemic break, and he was able to come back again, but he just never looked the same. So it's kind of hard. But I'm going to have to give Hazard a 6.5 rating, that 0.5, because he did have a good 2.5 months of the season. However, in the grand scheme of things, it was not great. Moving on to the last 2 players of the rating, and the next one, I'm sure you already know who the last 2 are, but the next one is Vinicius Junior. Now, for him, he is going to get a 7.5 rating. So he keeps improving. I think this season was definitely an improvement from last season. I'm going to remind you guys, he is like 21 years old, also a young Brazilian, his second year at Real Madrid, and he started to look a lot more confident with his shooting, with his dribbling. Like, everything just looked a little bit better from last year. However, there were periods in which he was a little bit inconsistent. You know, he only had 3 goals in the whole season, which is, in the grand scheme of things, for our attacker, for the second best attacker at Real Madrid this year, only having 3 goals, it's still kind of sad. However, we have to look more at his influence on the field rather than just like his stats, right? He was a player that was not scared to take players on as well. His pace, I mean, he really conditioned the other team's defense, made sure that they were pushed back, and so that gave us a lot of space to move forward to. So I think it's what he brought outside of his, stats, the goals, the assists. He brought a lot more to the team, and so that's why I wanted to give him a little bit of a high rating. Of course, if he really wants to improve that rating from a 7.5, he's gonna have to start scoring a lot more goals. At this rate, he looks like he's becoming a promising star for us, so I just hope he can continue on from that. And from that, we're gonna move on to our top attacker of the season, Karim Benzema, who was recently voted the MVP of La Liga. However, he is not quite the MVP for me in Real Madrid this season, as I'm going to have to give him a 9 out of 10 rating. And if you go check out the other videos, you will see that there are a couple other players that got high ratings from me. Why am I not giving him a 10 rating, a perfect rating? And I think that is due to the fact that had it not been for the quarantine break, he was starting to slow down a lot. So that quarantine came perfect for him because it was a place for him to really freshen up, right? However, had it not been for it, he was starting to look pretty sluggish out there because he racked up so many minutes. He was the player out of the whole team with the most minutes, I think somewhere around 3,100 minutes, which is a lot for one season, especially for a player that's about 34 years old right now. With that being said, he put the team on his back with 21 goals and 8 assists. That is phenomenal. His second best personal season, I think his best one being 24 goals. And I mean, without him, we would have not won this league. I did some analysis, and his goals brought Real Madrid a total of 16 points. So had it not been for him, we would have missed out on 16 points, which obviously means we would have not won this league. There was really no one to help him out in the attackers in terms of goal scoring. Karim Benzema, thank you very much for your season. However, with that being said, Benzema, our top attacker of the season. I hope you guys enjoyed this mini series that I did, rating the defenders, midfielders, and now attackers. So like I said, if you haven't checked out those other 2 videos, I highly suggest that you do, and stay on the lookout for our Champions League videos that are coming up. With that being said, guys, if you made it this far, please make sure you hit the like button down below. Subscribe to stay up to date with the latest news here at El Merengue Culé. I hope you have a wonderful day. I will see you next video, and a la Madrid.